No, no, que no venís. Pensé que me estabas preguntando.
Añares.
No, ¿para qué?
Bueno, yo no sé lo que
Those who have just arrived can join. Before we start the class, remember that we sent a message via the virtual classroom with the protocol for the second exam. Please don't forget to register when the class is organized. Stop there. Okay, so we can organize and let you know when you're doing your Okay, so today this is we start with the last topic that we've been doing in past year, that is education. Today it's a new presentation in education, and next week we're going to study education in the US. So introduction, next week work it out, and then we have round up. Okay? So, but before we start with the main development, we need to define education. And that's why I will ask you here to use two words.
¿Vemos solamente Great Britain o también vemos...?
But education is for you.
Suffering a lot a nosotros.
A lot también puede ser todo junto.
Suffering.
It's not right, education is. Education is to complete the rest. Otherwise, we go. You cannot separate. You copy it.
¿Sabes?
Es lo que estábamos haciendo.
Chota.
Estamos hablando de lingüística.
¿Qué?
Lingüística. Ayer le preguntaron a Javier y...
No sabía.
No, no le pegué una cachetada a este boludo. Sí, pero como que mintió, como que mintió al parecer. A una le mintió porque a la que le dijo que no, porque otra preguntó y dijo en el grupo, a mí me dijo que no sabía ninguna. ¿Pero cómo no vas a saber? Chicos, no es gracia.
Que es el sábado 25, o sea, me llega a decir que es el sábado anterior y me...
No, no puede ser el sábado anterior porque hay cultura.
El escrito... No. Y antes de eso no sé.
No.
Digo, 23 esto, 25, no.
No te diciendo. No, para que no lo diga. Si a veces aparte nos dicen por la segunda o tercera semana de... Es sí, la fecha.
El otro día tengo la fecha temprana porque hice el cercano. No porque lo hice.
Sí.
Sí.
Sí, la verdad se dio cuenta. Dijo, el no sé cuánto.
Sí.
Ayer, explotó y le digo a la chica. ¿Te manejas seguro si la piensa que está, no? ¿Qué empezó?
Many of you wrote learning, that's why it's mixed, yes? So learning, education is growth, knowledge. Education, well, this is in purple, what we will see. Progress, empowerment, education is a tool for development, opportunities, knowledge, it is a right. It is collective growth, passive knowledge, so learning, knowledge, progress and empowerment, development are ideas that are to be opportunities, learning again, knowledge, future, opportunity and knowledge, democratizing, knowing, equal and equitable knowledge and opportunity. Yes, so for most of you, education means
Para ti no fue
Why
la
is it a
clase
process?
Process outcome.
What?
Para que será
Okay, there is a
siento que como que
process to
nunca,
reach
nunca termina en ningún momento.
Yes.
¿Verdad?
And remember that, do you think that education is just getting a mark in an exam? No. That's why we have to focus on the goals. Focus on the process to get an outcome that you want.
Cuando es listo, porque termina la marca y ahí me quedé.
Now, there is an author, Paulo Freire, who says education, or some people tend to see education as schooling. Yes, and he describes schooling as banking. Why do you think he compares schooling to banking? Because banks. Very good. He says, just in the same way as you go to the bank and deposit money in the bank, the teacher comes and deposits knowledge. He said that is not education. That is okay. And another author makes a difference. Makes a difference between the teachers being carpenters and gardeners. Teachers shouldn't be carpenters, because what do carpenters do with the wood? They shape it, they mold it as they like. So if the teacher acts like a carpenter, the teacher will try to mold, shape the student in a particular way. But so they say they shouldn't be carpenters, they should be gardeners. Why? What do gardeners do?
Take care of plants and see how they grow.
Okay, they help plants grow. Okay, so in that way, the teachers should help students, this is mainly for those who will be teachers, should help students grow, develop their full potential. Okay, so that is the purpose of teaching, the purpose of education. Help students develop their full potential. Okay, and many of you mentioned this is important today. Education is a right. We take it for granted. Yes, but maybe we shouldn't take it for granted. Now, there are some concepts that will be very useful for you when you study education in the UK and in the US. One is the concept of equality. What is equality? What? Everyone gets the same, giving the same education to everybody. Everybody has access to primary education. Everybody has access to secondary education. The same for everybody. Then the other concept is equity. What does equity mean?
Every different opportunities for people to reach the same outcome.
Okay. Okay, so
Like not opportunities, but I don't know how to say it. Tools.
okay, resources.
Resources.
You give specific resources to different individuals to help them reach a particular level, a particular goal. And why would you need to give different resources or different opportunities to the different individuals?
Because we are different, we come from different backgrounds.
Okay, so we are all different and we come from different backgrounds, so this is related to what? To the socioeconomic background. So some students don't have the same possibilities as others. So if equity is the ruling concept in educational reform, well, the state would provide, yes, for these students who cannot have access to something because they don't have the resources. In what other cases do you see equity?
I'm thinking maybe not because of those different problems of village that have learning disadvantages.
Okay,
Yes.
with special educational needs. There are students who have special educational needs. So, in order to answer to those students, you provide specific resources to those students, not to everybody, but just to those, to help them please reach, yes, the same goal as the rest. So, it's attending to the particular needs of the different individuals. That is it. To help them, yes, because the fact, if there is equality, why meritocracy she mentioned.
Because everyone said, that, oh, if you give everyone the same opportunity, if they put enough effort, they will reach a certain goal, but not everyone has the same opportunity. It doesn't act like that in practice.
Okay, you don't have the same resources, you don't have the same capacity, you don't have the same interest, you don't have the same background. Okay, you get them and give the tools, but then when you use the tools as you wish, yes, in this case, you can, very good. Okay, because everybody can come here to university. Some finish before, some later, because of the situation student has. Okay, so very good. Then, so equity, equality, democratization of education. What do you understand by the democratization of education?
Maybe that education should foster critical thinking or questioning.
Or maybe all that is, we must
Master
conquer our future masters. That is the other concept.
Giving or granting more access to more people.
Okay, it's related to democracy. More people having access to education, first to elementary education, and secondary education, free education, state education. Okay, very good. Democratization of education, because maybe there is education, but it is private, so not everybody has access. So democratization. Very good. But when the state intervenes, the state tries to democratize education and advises to everybody. And then we must compel, the last concept, we must compel our future masters to learn their letters, but that inside this concept. This is education related to what?
Politics.
What? What aspect of politics?
Voting.
Voting. Okay? So, what does it mean? We must compel our future masters to learn the letters. Who are the future masters?
The children.
Today,
the
children,
future
one
generations.
word at school today are the future masters. Why are they the future masters?
Because if they will live in society and they will make the rules and will get involved and decide who represents them.
Very good.
People die, so generations change. And that means that the future generations needs to have the tools, sufficient tools to be able to handle the responsibility of leading society once our generation.
Básicamente es
Okay,
educar.
and also, because maybe then you're older, but there will be a new generation voting. Well, they will be both decisions that we will impact on you before you die. Yes? Very good. So there is a strong connection between the people who will be able to vote and education, because you want to prepare those people to make conscientious choices when they vote. Many of them maybe even govern us, yes, so you need to prepare these future masters to live in society, yes, and to be able not to be bribed, maybe when they vote, yes, they conscientious. Very good. So,
Salud.
we are going to try to see some of these concepts in education in the UK. Okay, the focus today is in UK. Now, in the case of the UK, when do we see the growth in the role of the state in education? What century?
19th.
The 19th century. Okay, there doesn't mean that education didn't exist before the 19th century. No. But what is the difference?
It was for the aristocracy.
And did the state take a role in education? No, education was mainly in private hands. Remember in Culture 1? So,
In the hands of the church.
in the hands of the church, where individuals, different religious groups, such as the dissenters, they created these systems. So they were not created or established by the state, but by the private. Okay? And then, when do we see the beginnings of state involvement in education?
1870.
Okay, that year could mark the beginnings of this national system of education. Yes? But before that, the state began to intervene in education. Very good. Remember the first one with the first government grants to education? Yes? During that period,
They appointed the inspector to see if the money was well invested in education.
that is the second grant, but the first grant was grants of money given to these societies, yes, that were dedicated to teaching children to build schools. And then more grants were given, and inspectors were appointed to see that the money was duly spent. Yes, so that is the beginnings of this involvement. And this is in your essay when author says, well, so now, by the middle of the 19th century, there were plenty of schools. But there was no national system of education. Okay? And there is a very important measure that gave impetus to the beginnings of this national system of education. Which measure? No, there is a measure before that act that led to the passing of that act. Which reform bill?
The first reform.
No.
The second reform.
Enfranchisement of work. Okay? Now, working class. Because before there were schools, remember, mainly you mentioned people of the aristocracy, the upper classes went to school. Yes? And this is in the context of the Industrial Revolution. And remember that who worked? Men worked in factories, women worked in factories, children worked in factories. Yes? And the families sometimes really need the income that came from their children's work. So, as education was not compulsory, the children sometimes didn't go to school, they had to work. Yes? But with the passing of this act, what we are going to see. Yes? So this is what we're going to see today. So the process, yes, in the growth of this national system of education, and how the system was organized in education. And the focus now will be state education. Yes, you're going to read about private education as well, but the main focus will be the role of the state. So now, you can use your notes to try to answer these questions. Reorganize the following education actions. You were mentioning the first one.
La primera es bueno, una modalidad. La segunda, la tercera, siempre la cual era una pelota mágica.
Un electro,
¿Control?
sí, no sé si te va a contar una ataque de locura. O sea, no sé si era estaba como muy ansioso y me sentía mal, estaba muy agitada. Entonces fui a la guardia.
Ay, no sabía.
Y bueno, ahí me pidieron. O sea, está bien mi corazón. Era una 11:20, pero no me quedaba. Capaz que no tenía luchar un poco, ¿viste? Pero voy a tomar la cinta.
sistema de 10 termina en es reacción porque sabes que no varía. Se cuentan con las hermanos de China. Ay, se me
Okay. So, let's see. We have some time to finish up. But let's start. So, most of you said that the first act in this process is the Forster Act. What is the year of the Forster Act? 1870. Yes? So, very good, because remember that we said that the beginning of this national system of education is closely related to the Reform Act of 1867. So, 1867, some years later, Forster Act was passed. And what is the significance of this act?
Set up the first
We're at public expense.
Okay, so first it laid the foundation of this national system of education. It is here when we see the beginnings of this national system of education. Because,
Because now elementary schools were under or at public expense.
okay, it's provided for the setting up of what kind of schools?
elementary.
Elementary school at the private, public
Public expense.
Okay, yes.
This national system of free or compulsory education, doesn't it begin with the Reform Bill of 1867?
67.
But this is the Foster Education Act 18.
Well, now we're going to see the connection in a minute, but you're going to see that whenever there is political reform, more people enfranchised, there is an educational reform. So we could say that the Forster Act came after. It's not that the Reform Act is political reform, and this is education. You're going to see when one Reform Act is passed, you have an educational act passed.
The essay said the Reform Bill of 1867 gave the first real influence.
Yes, it gave the impetus for the passing of this act. Yes? Or people started to think about the need, yes, for what? Well, but they passed it. So there, because you have
Reform bill is not a temporary action
of education, no. The thing is that with the reform bill, more people are enfranchised, workers are enfranchised. Well, we have the right to vote, we have the right to choose our representatives, and they chose representatives in a way that voted for their rights in parliament. Yes. And apart from that, the upper classes said, well, education is necessary, otherwise, all the things belonging to the lower classes that now can vote are going to vote everybody, whatever, we don't know. Yes. So vote. Yes, the people who could vote, the upper classes said, well, yes, we need education. Yes. That's why we see more people can vote. Okay. For education, the liberals. Yes. If you come back to our first class, we see the chart. Yes. About the impact of liberalism is education activism. Okay? Very good. So he laid the foundation for the national system, providing for the setting up of elementary schools at public expense.
regarding to that public, that means that they are supported by grants from the government, local fees, and people also pay.
And sometimes people have to pay. But the government granted money to build schools, to pay something, certain things. It was not free. Yes, but the government gave a lot of money. Now, when the elementary education becomes free, what do you have? So you have before the start, some years later, elementary education was evaluated. Okay? And what's the Foster's Act. Then you mentioned the Balfour Act.
No, todo. Es lo mismo.
What can you tell me about the Balfour Act? What year? What?
Balfour.
1902. So this is the 19th century. And
Established the concept of educational ladder and secondary education.
okay, so it provided for the system of
Secondary.
secondary education at public expense. So Foster's elementary education, but for secondary education, yes. But secondary education was not free.
No.
No, but you mentioned this idea of the educational ladder. What is this educational ladder?
The children from primary school could access secondary school through scholarships or grants.
Okay,
And if they showed capacity, they could access to universities through the same scholarships.
very good. So the educational ladder means a ladder in education. You can go up the different levels of education, but it's also related to social mobility. Because if you go up, yes, in education, you can go up eventually, socially speaking. Okay? So with this act, with the Balfour Act, this idea of the scholarship was introduced. So secondary education was not free, but children of the lower classes could access secondary education by means of this scholarship. Now, were scholarships open to everybody?
No.
Okay, only 25% more or less of the capacity of the schools, yes, were these free places or even to students through scholarship. Okay, think about this. So now more people have access to secondary education, but not everybody. Okay? Only those who could access the scholarship. Okay, very good. Now, the following you introduce is the Fisher Act. What can you tell me about the Fisher Act?
In 1918,
Okay, 1918.
the fees were abolished.
Okay, fees, but at elementary school. Even though the education had elementary education had been made free, some fees remained in some areas. Okay? And those were officially abolished. Very good.
School was up to 14 years.
Very good, and the school living age was raised up to 14. Okay? And this was very important because they wanted to put an end to what was called the part-timers. Yes, these children who went to school part-time and then went to work. They wanted at least until 14, they had to go to school. And they wanted to extend it to 16, then they could. It's a process. Then the Balfour Act, what can you tell me about the Balfour Act?
Passed in 1944, provided free secondary education for all people.
Very good. Free secondary education for all. Yes? Remember, the Balfour setting up of secondary education and the scholarship, but it was not free. Free education for all came with Balfour. Okay? What else do you remember for Balfour? For all. No, because I said that here you have that the setting up of secondary school here. The tripartite system, okay, the tripartite system. And this is a very important development in the field of education because actually the interwar period in Great Britain, so looking here, the interwar period was a period also of debate as to what secondary education should look like. Yes, because they say, well, we are having the secondary education being set up. What do we want when we expand secondary education for all? And there were some who favored differentiation in education. It says, yes, we are going to give secondary education for all, but all children are different. So we need different types of schools, yes, for different types of children with different talents and different capacities. Yes, and this is closely related to this tripartite system. Different The same secondary education firm, because the division in this tripartite system depends also on social division in society. So you had two groups, the ones who were in favor of dividing secondary education and the ones who were against. Yes? Now, who was the prime minister during Butler? Churchill. What party for Churchill? Conservative. And usually the conservative favor this tripartite system. Okay? So when the Balfour Act was passed, then the Ministry of Education encouraged, yes, the different councils to adopt this tripartite system. It's not that the Butler legislated or prescribed schools to adopt the tripartite system, okay, but it encouraged the adoption because the tripartite system had been proposed by whom? By which report?
By the Spence report.
Spence report, Harold report, there was the Nobel Committee, yes, who mentioned the benefits of this tripartite system. So after the act was passed, they said this is secondary education for everybody. Well, we encourage in the secondary education for everybody to adopt this system. It doesn't mean that everybody adopts it, but most schools adopted this tripartite system. Yes? And who can explain the tripartite system? Which were the three types of schools? Grammar schools, well, secondary modern, and technical schools. Okay? And how was decided the schools to which you were going to go? Very good. 11 plus examination. And something important about Butler is that it also made this structure of the educational system into primary education and secondary education. And they say, well, primary education is up until 11. And then you enter secondary education. Now, how do we choose the school? By means of an exam. What exam?
11 plus.
11 plus. The ones who passed this exam went to the grammar schools. The ones who didn't usually went to the secondary modern, the technical schools. There was everything. Yes, so usually those were the two types of schools. Okay? And what is the importance of grammar schools? You pass the 11 plus, you go to grammar school, but that's not being Sophia.
Private classes. I mean,
Why?
you can go to university.
Okay, the importance of grammar schools is that it prepares students, they prepare students to go to university. Okay? So if you go to university, you are going to get a better education, so you're going to get other jobs. Yes? And if you go to the secondary one, well, you will get other types of jobs. Okay? So you see how they try to address different students' capabilities. The more capable students with more talent, more hardworking, more intelligent should go to this grammar school.
¿Cuál es el año del Butler? ¿Cuál es el año del Butler?
Catering students, but every student had to speak for this 11 classes if you wanted to go to the grammar school.
Ah, en 19.
Just an attempt to go to the grammar.
Yes, but what was the issue with this?
Not everyone would prepare for those tests because they were not just important.
Very good.
They were seen as elitists. They were seen as elitists.
Elitist. This 11 class examination was seen as elitist. Yes, because usually it was not that easy to pass an 11 class examination. So who or which students were better prepared to pass this examination? The middle class and upper class students who could pay for the tutors. Middle class and upper class students.
And also because they didn't have to work, so
They didn't have to work, so they could devote more time to study. Of course, there were people from the lower classes who could pass because they were Christian students who didn't pass. But maybe those were the minority. Okay? And that's why we party criticized this tripartite. The Labour Party. Okay? And what did the Labour Party propose? Comprehensive schools. And what are comprehensive schools?
Gather all the students regardless of their social background.
Very good. They are state-funded schools. These are all schools that are state-funded schools, yes?
no, I feel so. Sí, cuando
Very good. Very good. The to the school. You go to school that was closer to your house, yes? But you didn't have these restrictions, yes, as regards their abilities with an examination. That was the idea of everybody can come to this. Okay? So what did the Labour Party propose to do? Or what happened to the grammar schools when the Labour Party came to power? Then eventually the Labour Party came to power.
They were given a choice. They would become comprehensive, or they would have to become private.
Very good. They say we cannot have these schools that select students on the basis of an exam. Yes, that selection, they were against that selection. So the grammar schools have to decide if they become comprehensive schools or if they become independent fee paying. Okay? You have to pay. When the Labour Party came to power, yes, this is during the government of the Labour. Comprehensive is related mainly to the Labour Party. Okay?
There's a chart in the virtual class shows how grammar schools extend the
Very good. As a consequence of this, what happened? The number of grammar schools, state-funded grammar schools, because remember that the local council also had a great influence over education, the local education authority. So, in the locality where the Labour Party
Giselle,
ruled,
espera, una vez.
the grammar schools, most of the grammar schools became
A ver si me levanta.
yes.
Como dice.
In localities where the Conservative Party was very strong, many grammar schools remained state. Yes. But the number of grammar schools, as a consequence of this movement towards comprehension. And today, are there grammar schools in England? Yes. But if you compare the numbers, for example, you have 150, 60 grammar schools and 3,000 comprehensive schools, for example. So there is a great difference between grammar schools and comprehensive schools. So that is bad. And Education Reform Act,
Recuerda la conferencia que se me
1988. Very good. This is with Thatcher.
set up the national curriculum.
Very good, very important, because up to now you have primary education, secondary education, but then the different schools, the different councils, the different localities could more or less choose in relation to the curriculum. The only compulsory subject is to be religion, yes? And now with this national curriculum, this changed, and which became the compulsory subject. Maths, language,
English, science.
English, well, when you say language, there's a lot of English. English, science,
Foreign language.
and foreign languages. And today it is English, math, and science. Those are the compulsory subjects, and then you have some optional subjects. Okay? But you have this national curriculum organizing, yes, what is taught at the school. And what else?
There's three different measures related to the opt-out system, for example.
So that schools could opt out from what? Yes, local, it's called LEA, L-E. Local education authorities, because remember that I told you that the local education authorities are the ones that manage schools, yes, in the different areas. So the government gave money to the local authorities. Yes, yes, it have been established before. They gave money to these authorities, and then these local education authorities decided how they would give the money to the different schools in the area. Yes, they allocated the money. Okay? So now they could choose to opt out from these local education authorities, and what happened if you opted out? Okay, they became centralized under the national government. And
The local management of schools.
this is related to the local management of schools. What does it mean?
Basically, schools to take control of themselves.
Especially what?
The budget.
The budget. Because now the government gives money to the school, not to the local make improvements in the schools, etc., etc. And what is the aim of these different schools when managing the budget? Okay, they want to improve education in their schools in order to attract more students, because you receive money depending on the number of students in your school. So they want to improve the education they provide, so they attract more students to their institution. And this leads to this competition between schools. And this leads to this raising of standards, because schools want to be better than that was the plan. Okay? Better than the other. So many schools decided to opt out, yes, and manage locally their own affairs. Okay? And apart from that, these schools were given the option of open enrollment. That is to say, they opened enrollment to everybody. Because usually before you went to the school that was closer to your house. But maybe that wasn't the best. So now parents could choose to send their children to a different school. Yes? And there are charts and rankings of schools with the level of education reached in the different exams, so parents can see, well, I prefer this school or these others. You have more possibilities. Okay? And that was done with the education reform. Okay? Now, some of the concepts that we mentioned at the beginning of the class, one of the concepts was related to this idea of compel our future masters to learn the letters. Now, to what extent did this idea influence educational reform in England? What do you think? To a great extent. Can you see connection between political reform and educational reform? For example, we said, which political reform eventually could have influenced the passing of the Conference Act?
The second reform bill.
The second reform bill of 1867. So 1867 reform bill, 70 education. Yes? The Balfour Act. Was there political reform before the Balfour Act? Maybe it was one of them.
It was in the 88.
84. 1884. Yes, then education was made free. And then eventually secondary education. Secondary schools were set up. The third reform bill. Then Fisher Act, 1918. Do you see any development related to political reform? Women over 30 in that same year were given the right to vote. Okay? And then the Balfour Act. What do you think? What measure? What political reform could have influenced eventually the passing of this act? Okay, universal suffrage, what year? 28. You have to bear in mind, 1928. Then what happened in Great Britain? You have the Great Post-Street Crash and the Great Depression. Then the war. So maybe that delayed education reform in a way. And then we see education reform. Okay? It's related to the welfare state. We study the welfare state. Okay? Very good. So you see that there is a close connection between political reform and educational reform and preparing these successors, future masters to lead this society. Okay, now, was political reform the only thing that influenced the passing of this legislation? What other wars? Okay, the wars, also the wars influenced the passing of legislation, yes. Balfour after the World Wars, Fisher at the end of the First World War, Butler at the end of the Second World War. So you can see that wars also influenced the passing of legislation because these people needed to be prepared. Yes.
That's why there was a question in the virtual classroom that said during peacetime there were reforms passed, and the question, the answer was true.
I don't remember the question, but it's related.
Acts.
There were important acts passed after wars and in the periods of wars. So
act of parliament affecting education was passed in an era of peace?
It was not passed in an era of peace. Because if you see, they are at the end of wars. During the first half. Yes. So you see how wars also influenced the passing of legislation, and then in the 19th century, what else influenced the passing of this legislation? Industrialization. Yes, they needed more than people just working in factories. They realized education was important because they saw that other countries, yes, were surpassing Great Britain, and then they would be competitors at the industrial level.
Y de idea
Entering the competition with Germany and Great Britain. Very good. And remember that in the second half of the 19th century, other countries became industrialized. States, Germany, and they began to compete, and they saw how those countries had a better
Ay, yo no sé cuánto es de pizza.
So you see, reform, political reform, intensification, wars, intensification, industrialization. Okay, very good. Let's see the next question. So now you have a general panorama, so the following questions will be ready.
Totalmente. Va a ser más fácil que la mía.
You have time. You have a source, read the source, and then answer to what extent did the 1902 Education Act promote equality? Question now is related to equality.
igual el tema del chileno a mí me importa. O sea, yo quería
Teacher,
que
they
lo vayan
are
dando.
parliament.
Yo quería que lo vayan dando.
I believe that
Gracias.
it promotes equality to a great extent.
Digo, qué bueno, ojalá en todos los días.
Having councils offer more secondary education eventually leads to more people accessing this secondary education. And even though
Wait, so, and you have that, you have expansion of secondary education. So there was more access to secondary education than before. So that tends towards equality.
and also the granting of scholarships for working class children also, even though it is unfair, even though it was not enough, even though not everyone could access those grants, it is a ladder to help other different people grow out of their socioeconomic status and get more education, get better working conditions, and set the precedent for good.
Very good, and sets a precedent for improvement in the future. So, even though not everybody will have access to secondary education, now you have the possibility, yes, something that before didn't exist. Yes.
The report also mentions if councils were encouraged, but not compelled, to subsidize existing grammar schools and to provide free places for working class children.
This is very important. For the first time, working class students have free places in secondary schools. Okay? So this is there. So this tended towards equality. However, you have two sides. Two sides didn't contribute to equality. Why?
Many because they were not free.
Okay, they were not free, so even though access expanded, not everybody could go because they were not free. Okay, so if you didn't get the scholarship, then you couldn't access to this education.
And also because it somehow deepened classification, especially for the 11th class examination.
But at this time, there was no
Sorry.
scholarship maybe was related to the selection depending on their development.
No son viejas esas, son nuevas. Ah, no, son nuevas, las azules eran viejas.
Las tengo hace 2 semanas.
But what else?
Las azules.
Because here the
Más bien.
says, the schools tended to cater mainly for the middle classes. Why? What happened to the children of the working classes? And this is something we mentioned before. All children, many had to work, so parents, even though their children could go this way, you can access, but the thing is that we need you to work. We need this extra income. Or they didn't send their children due to extra cost. You could access, but then the school is far away. You need to travel. You need books. You need uniform. That, for example. So there were certain limitations in that sense as well. So there was more access, but well, secondary education was not compulsory. Okay? Or students had to go up until 12. Up to that point. Okay? And that's why it is said that in cater mainly for the middle class. Because the children of the middle class who could access those free places, for example, maybe they could afford. Okay? Very good. Let's see the following. You can raise the vote, and the question is, where is standing the 1944 Education Act promotes equality? It's the same question about a different measure.
Sí, 44. Lo escuché cuando lo miré y te lo corrige. Gracias, igual. Lo quita. Yo voy a poner todo.
these sources are taken from the UK Parliament, and this is the description they give. You should understand. The plans for the post-war secondary education in Britain, so post-war, after the war, aim to remove the inequalities which remain in the system. We have just mentioned some inequalities. The proportion of free places at grammar schools in England and Wales increased from almost a third to almost half between 1913 and 1937. So this is interwar. However, when poorer children were offered free places, parents often had to turn them down owing to the extra costs involved. The Act provided free secondary education for all. Okay, so this which act is this one? The Butler Act. So you said it promoted equality to a great extent. Why did it promote equality? Very good. Free education. Okay, so this is the same for everybody. Okay. Anything else? Most of you said to a great extent.
Maybe by the rise of the tripartite system to develop a law that is a code of
This quote helps you maybe in one argument, but remember that you can mention more arguments. So everybody now, and this is very important, in this national system of education, all children will have access to primary school, and then secondary school.
But again, the counter-argument would be that it paved the way for the tripartite system.
Okay, it contributed to the or it encouraged the adoption of the tripartite system.
Therefore, they never passed exam.
Okay, so that would be to abolish that. So maybe, what can you tell me?
It somehow depends on class division.
It depends on your position in relation to the democratic examination and the tripartite system, if you favor it or not, because many people say, well, the tripartite system is not related to equality, because equality is the same for everybody, but it's related to equity. Okay, so maybe the ruling concept here was not equality, but was equity. Yes? Attending to students' individual needs. So the students with more capabilities, more talent, with fast, it didn't matter their social background, socioeconomic background, yes, could access grammar schools. In theory, it didn't matter in theory. The theory and the practice are different. They say it was, some authors say it was quite unrealistic, because in practice it was quite difficult to
That is
implement.
what we were talking about when we discussed the tripartite system, that you can offer the same, because it's the same examination, it's for everyone, it's the same, but the mind of a child that is malnourished since birth, because of the socioeconomic status, that needs to staple the window shut because their house is breaking down, it's not the same mind, cannot be focused as in the same level that another kid with a future with parents that sit down and help them for their homework. It's not the same environment.
Very good. So we could say that the act aimed to remove inequalities, but in the end, inequalities remain. Gave access, but actually, well, everybody could go to secondary education, that is access. Then the part that is not that equal will be this one, which school.
And apart from that, I was thinking that you give different tools to them, but not to reach the same outcome. Maybe you have different, because some of them will go to university, some of them will not.
Okay, and that's the thing is that the tools here, everybody can have. Yeah, everybody can do it. Everyone could go to a private school. Or everyone was free to stay funded. No. Yes, the thing is that the state gave the possibility to everyone. Then, well,
if you could access.
There is
That's
another
piece.
issue.
That's another story.
Okay, also there's one of the we are criticizing because of 11 class and how it's different classification. But sometimes you as a parent you know that your children will suffer the grammar school. And you decide to send your child to it. You have the very good. And that's why it's depending on the child, depending on their lives. Yes, you choose. Well, I am many people say 11 is too young. Yes, 5.
Pero
Need to fulfill different roles in society. Why is it always working class children having lower paying jobs?
Perché habla así?
Because of this, as I mentioned before, usually elementary education was a modification for information. But the change in secondary education for okay? So there you have arguments saying, even though they have the possibility, maybe the qualities, and even though, I'm saying, they can go to the grammar school, but the cost of travel, the cost of
That's why then the labor market is
okay?
The other round.
You could say, the Education Act promoted equality. To one extent, because it promoted equity, and also because the inequalities remain, depending on the arguments that you use. On the other round. Equality is equal access. Everybody has the possibility to access. And then equity is depending on their needs. Yes, that is it. And then inequality. Ese es equality. Secondary education for all is equality. Todos, everybody can access to secondary education. That is equality. Everybody can access. Yes. The part of equity would be, well, the three-part system. Because they're not given the same secondary education, well, depending on the school you went, is the secondary education.
Because at the beginning we said that different tools for different needs in order to reach the same outcome. But if you or if you put some in a grammar school and some in a modern school, they're not.
But the tool here would be you have access to secondary education. That is equality.
The objective is secondary education, finishing secondary education.
Sure, secondary education.
But you can't say you have equity because for different needs. Yeah.
In this case, it's different capabilities, different interests.
You're reaching the same outcome that is finishing secondary education, but through different types of tools because there are different needs.
So everybody will finish. That is the outcome. Finish. Yes. The thing is that maybe not all the students are prepared to go to a grammar school. So if you're not prepared, maybe you want to finish. And the plan is that you finish. So you go to this other type. Maybe the aim is not that everybody goes to university. The aim is that everybody finish. Okay? Yes? Let's see the college.
Mira, yo digo sí a todo. Yo digo sí. Todo grito, ¿cómo no?
Okay, this is about comprehensive school. Because remember that many people criticize the tripartite system, many people from the Labour Party, so they propose this comprehensive plan. So the question is, to what extent is comprehensive school promote equality? Yes. And the quote reads, there is a report, finds little evidence to suggest that comprehensive schools are becoming less socially selective. Strong evidence that things have not improved in 2017, and some clear evidence pointing to increasing levels of social selection in comprehensive admissions in some parts of the system. Okay? And the question is, to what extent the comprehensive schools promote? Those who said to a great extent. What can you say? What argument? Maybe some of the arguments will be similar to the one you gave for the butler, but in the other perspective.
It provides the same kind of education for everyone.
Okay, there is no selection, there's no an 11 plus examination, so everybody receives the same kind of education. That is equality, but yet.
Also, there can be gaps in the systems or problems, but the effect it generally has still positive.
Okay,
The same.
yes, of course, no system is perfect.
Exactly.
Yes, the tripartite system has still
This
comprehensive.
focuses on a specific problem, but
Yes,
it doesn't mean that
that,
they're not
and
promoting it.
very good, and that's why most of the schools are comprehensive schools today, okay? And maybe the quote, remember that maybe the quote doesn't agree with your position, you don't need to agree with the quote, okay? You can give arguments to support your own perspective. So very good, there's no selection, so there is equality. Everybody receiving the same kind of education. All students are, yes, in the same class. Now, to a small extent, no equality.
We can mention the quote.
Okay,
Thanks,
equality,
vale,
let's have an argument. Yes, in this perspective. Why? What does the quote state?
It says that it's been selective.
Okay, even comprehensive schools are being selected. And I wanted to read, so the current English school system is selective. Yes, and I wanted to read part of a report that read, independent schools, this is about secondary education in general. Independent schools are private schools, independent schools. And the report says, independent schools, most obviously so, given their fees, are exclusive, and social selectivity of grammar schools has also been widely covered elsewhere. So they say, the ones that are fee paying are selective, you need to pay. The grammar schools are selective because you have to pay. They say, well, but we knew that these types of schools were selective, and they were criticized by the grammar schools by a proposed comprehensive. But the report continues. However, within the comprehensive system, there is also significant social selectivity. Something that shouldn't exist. That was not exist. Exists in a comprehensive school. Schools. And this has to do with the students who go to the different schools. It has to do with the labor in which the school is. Yes, I integrated and schools with more affluent students are more likely to achieve higher grades, send more people to university, as well as being more attractive to teachers. Schools with high levels of deprivation often have a concentration of high-needs pupils who face significant barriers both inside and outside the school gates. This, in many cases, leads to low obstetrics rating and league table positions of the schools in the rating when you choose what school you're going to send your child to. they rank the lowest because of the results of the exam, as well as greater likelihood of behavioral and other issues that make teacher recruitment and retention difficult. Yes? So, what does the source say? Or what do you infer from the source of what I have just read?
That comprehensive schools seem to be another ideal, like the three-part system, tripartite system. And at the end of the day, even though they are comprehensive, they teach the same things, blah, 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 this division between schools that are more likely to get you into college and schools that are not as likely to get you to college still remain.
Very good. And besides, you have to bear in mind that the school has a limited capacity. So you cannot accept all the students. So you need to admit students based on something. So maybe the name would be one. And that's why the schools that are placed in well-off neighborhoods, maybe the results are different than in something similar happens here in our city. Well, okay, you wanted to say something.
I was just wondering if you could say that then comprehensive schools in theory are comprehensive for everyone, but in practice they're not. So that would be the argument.
Yes, focusing on this one, that there are admissions. Yes, in some, it's not that in all parts of the system, in some areas, quite big. But we see that selection exists. And it's the same theory practice of the idea, the Bachelor of the idea, education for everybody. Comprehensive, what, same education for everybody? Yes. Okay? So, very good. Let's see the following one. And this one, okay? The source of the
Aunque fuese seguido, como más que pagamos. El que le tipo son una producción. Ese. ¿Verdad? Ay, yo puse falso. Pero sin querer porque quería tocar verdadero. Qué color igual. Se me ha hecho horrible. ¿Qué se queda acá? Ah, no, pero yo veo en el coso. Es una así, tipo fácil, así. Por eso bueno, o sea, unos diseños funcionales. O sea, después tiene una unidad funcional de parece que violeta, tiene frases, tapa dura. Literalmente no se logró, pero el después genial.
Okay, so let's see the source. The source reads, grammar schools select all or most of their students based on examination on their academic ability, usually at the age of 11 class. There is a general prohibition against state-funded schools selecting students based on academic ability. Grammar schools that have had selective admissions arrangements in place during the 1997-98 school years are exceptions to this and are permitted to continue to select by admission. The general prohibition against academic selection in state schools prevents the establishment of any new change to an existing school and not a new school. So, the source puts forward the idea that grammar schools in England, state-funded grammar schools in England, are likely to increase in number. True or false? Right. There are many that are state-funded and some. So you have state-funded grammar schools, the ones that remained in areas that were governed by the conservative party.
Remember that we mentioned that
They had to choose between incoming comprehensive and remaining grammar. I said that in the places where the Labour Party governed, there was this movement towards comprehensive. But there were some areas that were more conservative and those grammar schools. But the numbers, no, they follow the national curriculum. Because the subjects are content and the time devoted to the students have to So they follow the national curriculum, but maybe the options they offer are different. The level they give each class is different. The teachers teach how to prepare curricula. No, here in Argentina you have the public education and then you have some private schools that are state funded. So they follow the curriculum, but they offer more hours of English or extra subjects, and the teachers are different, so the demands are different.
here in Argentina, generally they are religious. You have to pay a fee, but they also receive money from the government.
No, pero era
Hay colegios privados, no el mínimo es nada como pero colegios privados que tienen un nivel colegio.
No, tenemos más. Igual esos americanos tienen como 27. Sale más barato que lo comprar. Tipo por PayPal. No, a mí no me da. Como le quería un poco de plata en pesos, y quizá con esto de las elecciones como que está aumentando.
Can more grammar schools in England be created?
No.
Why not? It's a constitution because there is a law that was passed in 1998, that is the School Standards and Framework Act, that said or forbade the establishment of any new schools that were selected. In this case, by means of an examination. And they say the exception are the schools that already existed. The grammar schools that already existed by 1998 continue being grammar schools with the level class examination. But because of this measure, no new school, state-funded school, can be created if they are selected.
So it wouldn't be a grammar school if it was not.
That's why you cannot create more grammar schools. Unless state-funded. Unless you make it private. But state-funded. Grammar schools, new state-funded. But not they are not state-funded. You drop the selective, you're not the grammar school. Yes, that is what makes it grammar school. Okay, so the idea here is that because of this act, it's very unlikely for grammar schools. Okay? This change depending on the subject. The Labour Party proposes this, no more grammar schools. The Conservatives say, well, maybe open the creation of grammar schools. They leave them, they say, let's remove it.
Que me diste miedo por teléfono. Gritaba.
Today, you have the
con mi valija, mis juguetes y soy nunca.
And yes, Summer is having problems and is losing confidence in his government.
Me encuentro cuenta que soy un
Well, we haven't seen it yet. Let's see. Because there is A-levels lo aprendís en el programa.
What extent do you agree with Professor Harris? Can't show that Professor Harris.
Ya volvemos a la del private.
¿Qué es esa pregunta? A mí esa pregunta no te la van a hacer.
So this question is, if your professor who says the school environment, the school environment is so diverse and the potential opportunities the best will can be recreated at home. There is no replacement for school.
¿Cuántas ganas tenía de responder igual, no?
So this teacher says the school environment can be recreated at home. There's no replacement.
Creo que después responder porque ahí se había terminado. A mí tengo un segundo toque. ¿De algo? Al jefe. Claro. Bueno, vos sabés que no es por el jefe. Ahora puede tener doble sentido. Exo. Ah, yo exo. Me dijiste que porque es una cabeza. Se comprende.
So what is the source of homeschooling? What is homeschooling? Teaching children at home. Homeschooling. Decide as a parent. Yes. Provide education to your children at home instead of sending them. Okay. What? Okay. It depends on the gun, but here it's not. Here it's okay, but let's see what are the advantages of homeschooling. Why? That was the source. But what would be the advantages of homeschooling? In the UK, homeschooling is yes. So many parents resort. Why? What are the advantages? Why you as a parent would decide to homeschool your child?
But you have to follow the
Not today. Various awarding mechanisms. Okay, one of the advantages is the flexibility provided. Children can learn at their own pace because sometimes at school they fall behind, or maybe they're too advanced.
You probably don't will not give a uniform to your child.
Okay, some expenses that are not included. No uniform, no transportation to school. Okay, what else? Very good. If your child has special education needs, disabilities. Okay, very good. So, special education needs, maybe you can cater for your child's needs at home better than in school. It depends on the child. That's the disadvantages. Now we're in the advantages. She mentioned maybe sometimes parents live too far away from school. Yes. So it's better to come to school. Or sometimes there are parents that because of their work, they are usually going from one place to another. So to keep their children educated, they resort to other you have to homeschool his children, but for sure they are registered somewhere. Yes, there is a group of family travel by boat around the world. Yes. Also, they know okay, because of the vibe. So, because at home there is a safer environment. Yes? Because it depends on the it depends on the family and it depends on the school. But yeah, the math should be maybe that you say come to your mind. Bullying is very present. Bullying, racism, peer pressure, great stress. Many people mention health issues, anxiety, yeah, mental okay, there is another issue. You choose and you can teach religion. Yes. Your child will take because state by education. Okay, so there are advantages for the parents who choose this system. Okay? Once was homeschooled? In the case of the United States that you're going to read about the USA, what's the representation you have about education? The USA depends on the state. The name of the state. Yes, it was are the requirements. In the case of the UK, you don't follow the national curriculum. But again, you have to say to the school when I decide to homeschool my child, and if the government sees that your child is not being educated, then they can make you someone to make sure if they believe that your child is yes, because then prepare your child for the A levels. Because your child may be very bright and say, well, I want to prepare my child to do the A levels and then university. So it depends when you say students need, because some children need more help and others you want to, because of their capability, prepare them to go to university. Better education. How do you well, in the case of the UK, you have exams. Yes. And let's see the cons, the disadvantages.
Children know what's right and what's wrong because of what they hear and do.
Okay, the parents can teach them because the family is the first learning environment and can teach what's right and what's wrong. Okay? But
the only one.
okay, maybe the family. So what do you see at school that is not present at home? More diversity. Very good. So you socialize because if you're homeschooled, you socialize. But with the people you choose.
Case in point.
But if you go to school, there's more diversity. So you socialize with more diverse people who have a background.
skills or because you have this problem.
Very
And you can
good.
make it here, so.
You develop different skills that prepare you for professional life. Because the aim of education is that to prepare you for life. Yes, and if everything is so easy. Yes.
And then when you take care of it, you are there prepared if you go to, I mean, you're homeschooled, you are not that prepared to go to university
Maybe you could be academically more prepared, but what about the social room? You have to have the skills too. Yes. Okay. The soft skills. And both, so the other way around. Very good. And what you don't know. But, okay, because from homeschool you say, beautiful. But can a parent teach all the subjects? No.
And apart from that, I was thinking about perspectives as well. Things is that maybe, learning math or science is quite straightforward, but when it comes to social sciences, maybe your parent is more biased.
Okay, very good.
And apart from that, maybe the parents are not well prepared to teach all the subjects.
Experience may lack
pedagogic instruction at all. In every school you go with professionals that have learned how to teach. It's not only a matter of knowing the information and passing it on. It is a process, a whole process.
So, for that, if you don't know about the subject, you have to spend. In that case, it's how much you spend. I believe that
Yo no me lo sé hacer. Rarísimo.
that's why there are
Sí, me pareció que el año pasado había sesiones amarillas a la visa. Me iba yo. Yo me había sacado la presentación.
This is for you when you
Yes. Para pelotudo, voy a recallar un rato. No pienso ver el video ahora, señora. No me lo para.
It's not only in a country, but among countries. Yes. There are countries that give more money. Yes. And then, this is just to round up. Remember that next class is going to be universal. Yes. Then we meet again on the 9th of October for the round of assessment. Then the 16th of October is completely virtual. We upload the presentation. Okay? You're not meeting, so and we meet on Saturday 18th. We're going to do the written exam, and then on the 23rd. Okay? Don't forget to register for the Okay? So let's have a break.
Lo voy a ver.
¿Qué decir? Para mí fue el mejor.
Sources, because remember that for your exam you will also have a source. Okay? So, what we're going to do, different presentations.
No.
Because of the time we have. These two lines here will work with perspective A. And these two lines here will work with perspective B. Okay? The question is, to what extent has the concept of equity influenced educational reform since the second half of the 20th century, okay, in the UK, yes? So, which are the key equity,
Influence.
good, and educational reform.
Second half, 20%.
Only seems the second half of the 20th century, yes? And it is in the present perfect. So that tells you that you have to consider from the second half of the 20th century, that is the 40s, 50s, onwards till
Now,
today. Okay, till today. Very good. So, perspective A would be the concept of equity has influenced educational reform since yes.
Tenía que hacerse un estudio.
Perspective B, the concept of equity has not influenced educational reform. Okay? So, perspective A has influenced, perspective B has not influenced. And you're going to analyze the source and include the source. Let's see the first source. It says, in the 1950s, the pressure for entry to the grammar schools constantly grew. And the system developing was, as Michael Young describes it, a true meritocracy of talent. It is a true fact that the grammar schools had enabled lower-class children to climb up the educational ladder and have a university degree. But there was still a huge mass of wasted academic ability among the lower classes. The deeply embedded idea of aristocratic tradition had not been left aside. By imperceptible degrees on aristocracy of birth turned into an aristocracy of talent.
Mili.
And what was even worse, the future career as well as the whole life of a person was decided at the age of 11. This quote was taken from Fada's text that you have to read, okay? So that you can go back there. In which perspective do you think that you can use this quote to support your arguments? Perspective A or B? B. Very good. So, these two lines that have to work with perspective B will use this source. Okay? This is one of the arguments. Okay? Good. Let's see the other one. I will take up this brand new, sorry. If you see here, this was taken from where? Philipson is who? Today's education secretary.
Ah, pero es una canción vieja. Relax, don't do it. Ta, 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 ta. Deja. Ay, ella, ay. La música.
¿De proposal? Sí, Sandra.
Salud.
Ah, sí.
Sí, la que está Sandra Bullock y Ryan Reynolds. Yo me acuerdo que salí y estaba viendo porno cuando la vi, porque la vi a los 8 años en un colectivo de larga distancia y estaba ahí en pelota yo. Soy menor, no me pagan porno.
So, the concept of equity has influenced educational reform. Why can we say that it has influenced educational reform or that we see this equity part? First of all, in the contextualization, what would you include? Or what would you say? The definition of equity, the concept of equity. What is equity? And you have a definition in the beginning, equity is the provision of personalized resources each needed for all individuals to reach common goals. are the same for all the students, but the supports needed to achieve those goals depends on the students' needs. And you have a beautiful picture in the virtual classroom that illustrates what is equality, what is equity. Alright? Good. So it has influenced educational reform. What can we say here?
One of the reasons is that the legal parties criticized grammar schools because they realized that equal access was not enough and that equality was needed to be comprehensive.
They promote comprehensive. Okay. We may include here, although it's before,
¿Viste?
some of the this here. Yes, the Butler. Sorry, before you, what you mentioned.
Yo lo puse porque la vuelva esta dijo Ortiz.
Why do we say that the Butler Act promoted equity?
Secondary education.
Good, good. So theoretically, it promoted equity because we say, well, we want to cater for the different talents and abilities of different students, offering more personalized education through different pathways, through different types of schools to finish secondary education. So in that sense, we could say that it's equity, but we could also put it here. Why? Education for all people. That's equality. First of all, we can say that it led to equality, not equity. Why? Because it established free education, free secondary education for all. So that is equality. Free education for all. That is equal. The same for everybody. Okay? Or that it was not equitable. Why not? That this tripartite system was not equitable. And these groups, your perspective B?
No.
Why not? Why is not equitable?
It didn't take into account the background of all students and their resources, their capacity.
Good. And apart from that, if we consider grammar schools, good. They have to sit for the 11 class examinations to go to grammar schools. And if we consider that students came from different backgrounds, different schools with different resources, yes, so many children from working families would not wear the disadvantage to pass this exam. Okay, and many of them couldn't pass the exam. Good, also. Yes, very good, excellent. So it reinforced social class divisions, and it was not fully addressing the needs of the students and etc. Okay, good, very good. Then, sorry, what was your name? Milena. Milena mentioned what?
Comprehensive schools.
Comprehensive. Comprehensiveness or comprehensive schools. Okay, we will write it here also.
Se copian.
Why can we include it in perspective A?
Gather all students regardless of their level.
Okay, so it offered a common curriculum, that is, everybody a common curriculum, but within the same group, without the same school, a grammar stream, a technical stream, and a modern stream for the different types of students in the same school. Do you see the difference between the tripartite and this one? That is the comprehensive schools, yes? So the goal was to provide personalized educational opportunities within a single school system to cater for different types of learners. Okay, that is comprehensiveness. It was the same schools with a common curriculum, but with 3 streams for the optional subjects, okay? It's the same as the tripartite: grammar, technical, and modern. Yes?
In the same school.
In the same school. Yes? So in that sense, we could say that theoretically speaking, it promoted equity. Yes? Catering for different needs to achieve the same goal. Why not? What happens mainly in the 60s and in the 70s? Well, in the 60s we see the growth of these comprehensive schools, okay? And then in the 70s, what happened with the Labour Party?
The grammar schools were given the chance to or become independent or to assimilate on school to become.
Okay, so in the 1970s, when the Labour returned to government, they said that they were that comprehensiveness and grammar schools were not compatible. Okay, so they decided to withdraw, yes, the grants from grammar schools. Okay, so they had to choose whether to convert into comprehensive schools or to become full fee-paying schools. And many of them chose to become private. Yes, independent fee-paying schools. So, what happens? Because in this case, there were many children at this point that came from working families who could pass the 11th class examination. They were the minority, but there were some who could achieve that. And they could go to grammar school and then to university, and that was the educational ladder. But what happens when the government says no more grants to these grammar schools and most of them became private? So that children from working classes say we could not even go to a grammar school, could not even try to. Do you see? In first article says, many of them chose the second course. There were no more fee-paying schools than ever before. While the ladders by which poorer children had climbed to success were completely suppressed. Okay? Good. Then, what can we mention here in perspective? Let's go on.
In 1988, the open enrollment,
Education Act.
the Education Act,
Which party was in power? Conservatives with Margaret Thatcher. And she promoted what?
stopping local education.
Good, because she said that the local educational authorities were more associated with labor power than labor government. So she said, well, more centralized power. So,
With the centralized powers and the schools opting out of the LIAS, then the open enrollment will allow people to allow kids to go to other schools, not necessarily the ones in their own neighborhood.
good. Good, very good. What else?
Local management of schools.
Local management of schools. So we have local management of schools. So that gave them more freedom to the schools to cater for the needs of the children from that area. Okay? That was not the same maybe from the children in another area. Okay? So they have a greater autonomy, which allowed them to make more decisions regarding their budgets, materials, yes, to meet the needs of their students. Okay? Good. And parents were given, as we said, the right to choose the school that they want their children to attend, this open enrollment. So this enabled access to schools that best suited the children's needs. So I say, well, no, this school doesn't suit my child to achieve the same goal as the other, finishing secondary education. So I will send my kid to this other school, okay? You see, in that sense, it promotes equity, okay?
national curriculum has to be more
Good, good. It could be said, yes, that it's more equality than equity because of this national curriculum. Very good. Yes. They're not obliged to follow.
Okay, so.
Here we are speaking about the state concepts. Yes. So, national curriculum for state schools, yes, with the core subjects and then the optional subjects, yes. What else? In that sense, it's equality, not equity. What else? What can we say that is not equitable? Not equality or not equity?
What motivates the fact that you focus on internal life rather than the needs of the children?
Maybe the core or the essential subjects that were chosen were not were the prototypical, maybe not all the.
Or the fact that they competed, the schools competed.
Good. So, if I am a very good school and I attract more, remember the concept you have in the essay also, the concept of capitation. Yes? Yes.
Ay, qué boludo.
What is the
Capitation,
concept of capitation?
Puse computer.
Good.
Funny.
Yo puse capitation.
Money according to the number of students.
Capitation.
It allocated money, yes, per student. So I said, well, I will give each school, I don't know, 10 pounds for each student that the school has. 10 pounds, 10 pounds. So if this school has 4 students, it has 40 pounds, yes, for that school. If this school has 10 students, more money. Do you see? Because it was per student the money that the government gave to the school. That is capitation. Per capita.
¿Por qué sería no
So
equity?
that school started to compete and wanted to improve their quality of their education to attract students. Because in that way they would receive more money. Okay? You have this explained also in the essay. Okay? Part of the essay. Okay? So when you go back home, read that. They will get capitation.
O sea, no es que le dan la plata siempre a un municipio, depende de tu performance, te van a dar plata. O sea,
So, if you say,
o sea, las
in
escuelas.
theory,
Pero el equity no es para la gente.
the schools received the money. But if you say, well, but there were schools that received more money, and they were schools that received less money. So they were schools that had more money for more resources, better preparation, better staffs, because they paid more money to their teachers. Yes, and there were schools from other backgrounds that maybe received less money, less resources, less. Do you see? But it could be considered in different ways. So that's why it could be considered in both, okay? Because you could see different perspectives. Yes?
Ah, ya entendí.
Is it okay? Do you understand? And this money assigned because remember that they could opt out of the IAS. The IAS is the local education authority. So before you have
Y ahí no
the
pueden
Department
cater.
of Education, that is a national central government. Yes? The government has got money. Money for health, money for education, money for security. Well, this was money for the Department of Education at national level, so from the central government. This money went to the LIAS, the local education authority.
Hizo las escuelas, las grammar schools, les quitó las grants. Entonces le dijeron, o sos privado o te haces una competencia. Entonces la metodología hizo privada. Entonces ya no tenías que rendir el examen, pero tenías que pagar. Y mucha gente no podía pagar. De la B. Justo por eso no es equity. Porque la gente que tiene esas necesidades de las grammar schools, muchos no pueden pagar.
Directly to the school. Yes? And the school could manage this budget, this money,
¿Qué sé yo?
and the materials, the resources, the staff, the etc. That is local management of the schools. Okay? Do you understand? Yes. Good. And it has its pros and its cons. Okay? That's why you consider both sides, and you can consider if it is equality, if it is equity, or if it's not equality, not equity. Yeah? Good. Alright, that's that. So, very quickly. Anything else that we could mention? Good. 2014. Here. Sorry, and before this one, we will mention another one. Which one?
Sí, los 2000.
What happened in 2002?
2002.
And you have this in the virtual classroom. Education and Skills Act. Very good. Education and Skills Act. And you can consider this Education and Skills Act that it provided equity and maybe that it did not. And then 2014.
Children and Families Act.
Good. Education, health, and care plans for special educational needs and disabilities. That is to cater for the needs of students with special disabilities. Okay? Tailoring education to individual needs. Okay? Good. So let's go very quickly to the quotes. The first one. Is it for perspective A or B? Perspective B. You were perspective B?
No,
Perspective B. Why perspective B? It's making reference to what? Said 1950s, so towards here. 1950s.
Esta es la última clase, ¿no? De esto. Después está el repaso.
What is
Pero digo
telling you
esto.
the quote?
Es la unidad 3. Sí. ¿Va la unidad 3? ¿O ya la vimos? Para mí no. Para mí ya la vimos a la unidad
Not
3.
equity.
4 y 5 para mí.
Equality.
Igual no las tengo muy sabidas, ¿viste? Pero
Ah, the tripartite system. Okay, but here the
¿y qué vimos en la unidad 3?
speaking about grammar.
Spanish, gender,
Yes, but
uso del
between this
grupo,
tripartite system, only people from the higher classes will go to grammar school because of their
Si mira Carranza, a la vimos.
background, so this widen the class gap. So in practice,
¿Conoces esta mano? Ya ni conocía.
Good, very good. At the beginning it says, in the 1950s, the pressure for entry to the grammar school constantly grew. And the system developing was, as Michael Young described it, a true
Qué loco.
meritocracy. So, theoretically, if you were a talented child, yes, you, in spite of being from an upper class or a lower class, that didn't matter. If you were talented, you could sit for the exam, pass the exam, and go to this grammar school. That is the meaning of a true meritocracy of talent, okay? It is a true fact that the grammar schools had enabled lower class children to climb up the educational ladder and have a university degree, okay?
Esos perros siempre tienen la lengua
In that
floja.
sense, you could say, well, it was
No, no tiene esos perros.
equality,
Siempre se les sale la lengua.
okay? Yes, that everybody could have the opportunity, okay? But there was still a huge gap, so this word here tells us something. Possession. There was still a huge mass, most of them, of wasted academic ability, that is, children from lower classes that had the talent, that had the academic ability,
Ah, es un montón de
among the lower classes,
las
but
aplicaciones en modo
the deeply
claro.
embedded ideas
Tengo
of
todas en modo oscuro.
tradition had not been left aside.
by imperceptible increase an aristocracy of birth, that is people that because of birth, because of the family.
No sé, yo lo activé una vez y me quedo ahí. Y ahora ya lo veo blanco y me incomoda.
Turned into an aristocracy of talent.
Racista, básicamente.
Go to these grammar schools and pass the 11th class examination.
¿A qué?
And what's even worse, the future career as well as the whole life of a person was
No,
decided
yo blanco no lo tolero.
Yes?
Sí,
That
sí,
you're
yo blanco no
very
lo
young
tolero.
to make that decision.
Ojalá.
Yes? So, we could say that even though
Ya está, vieja chata.
we promoted this equality that everybody had access because it was state funded,
Yo necesito que les empiecen a cobrar.
it was not
Que le saquen el sueldo cuando se pasan de la hora.
all students could pass
Sí.
these examinations and go to these grammar schools.
Boludo, y tipo $50.000 de cosas.
Good. And the other one,
Está bueno igual. Para que sí. Pero si no hay gente que habla 10 horas, por ejemplo, en los Oscar, que habló el tipito este. Ay, no sale ahora el nombre. El de The Brutalist. Brayden, no, Brody, algo Brody.
and then
Que estuvo 10 horas hablando en serio, speech fue una mierda.
Secretary of State said,
Cobre dinero, eso después tiene que estar adelantando. O sea, cobre.
To bring them barriers to opportunity and
Y bueno, muchos dijeron, tipo, pongo la plata por lo que me supere.
especially for sense kids. Because it says that you could say that it is equality because it wants to favor or promote the use of technology for all students at the beginning, yes, to modernize our education system.
Sí, total, cállate.
To bring down the barriers to opportunity, to cut and